to introduce the transition talk to you. So I was you last year. My husband and I, we just came into Kentucky. We're from Georgia. So we came from like 115,000 degree weather to this 83 degree nothingness. This is not summer, just clarification. This is not summer. We had just got married, moved here 10 days later. I was this social butterfly, extrovert, came from college, loved everything, came here, and I shut down. I didn't want to be anybody's friend. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to like anybody. I was in transition. I was totally freaking out. And my husband was like, "What is wrong with you?" I was like, "I don't know, okay? This is not working for me. I need you to get through seminary as fast as you can because we're going back home to Georgia. I'm going home. You can stay here. But we're not staying here in Kentucky." So we were supposed to be here for a year later. Now we've extended it to almost 3 because we love it here so much. So it's kind of funny. You may kind of see God work in your life that way. But I want to introduce somebody pretty special to me and to the Community Formations Department and to this campus. You met her yesterday somewhat, but you'll really get to see her in action today. This is Dr. Marilyn Elliott. She wanted me to introduce her as a grandmother who loves gardening, who loves riding her bike, and she said I could introduce her as someone who's old. That's what she said. I didn't say that. She's also from Canada, which is a pretty cool aspect. You'll hear it as she begins talking. You'll hear the Canadian in here. Also, just wanted to briefly tell you that we had a glitch in the air system. So if you're wondering why it's so crazy hot, this is not normal. Please feel free to take your shoes. You can take your shoes off. That's it. That's it. So with that, I'm going to hand the microphone to Marilyn Elliott.
Hashtag, that's so hashtag. Please feel free to take your clothes off. Asbury Seminary. I love it. Perfect. Okay, how many of you have come here from somewhere else? Awesome. Okay, so you are all in transition. And that means that we need this talk. Okay, this is an amazing talk. And it's not because it's my talk. Well, maybe it is, but I'll own that. But this is an amazing thing that we're going to talk about transition. And you need to hear this because this will apply not to today, not to coming to seminary, but for the rest of your life. This is going to help you. And someone should have told you this a long time ago. But transition is something our culture and churches do not talk about, even though everyone is in what now the sociologists call semi-permanent transitionality. That means stuff is changing. You know, if have any of you tried to change your bank account since you came here? That alone will put you over the pale. You know, it's a sanctifying process. Okay, so I want to describe for you the life you left if you were in a place where you were settled and secure and had a sense of life there before you came here. When we're in a present-oriented place where we haven't made significant changes for a while, we live as the owner of life. And the owner not just of our life, but the life around us. And our commitment is present-oriented. And one of the definitions of being sane is having a present-oriented life. So you're not living in the past, all regrets and trauma and everything, that's all okay. It's healed, it's something you've dealt with, it's not dominating your life. And you're not living in the future that everything is for tomorrow, but you're actually living in the present. Some of the deep spiritual masters like Jean-Pierre de Caussade, the sacrament of the present moment, the whole thing is about learning to know God by living in the present moment. So you were present-oriented, and that means that you were responsible and responsive. That means that you both knew what the culture around you needed and you gave to them, but you also received from them. As well, you belonged in some group, and you may underestimate that. It may not have been a small group. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is a group in which information is exchanged. And you may underestimate that as well. All of these things we take completely for granted, not realizing that they are what is supporting our life. So I had a friend who was a farmer. He grew up as a farmer. He took over his father's farm, and in 1988, during the Canadian recession, he lost the farm. It was a tragedy. It was a trauma. They moved to Calgary, Alberta, where my husband and I had just moved to take a church, and this man almost died, not from lack of food or even money, but from no one needed his information. He could tell you how the weather would affect the crops. He could fix a machine. He had massive amount of information, but he was living in a big city, and it made him feel invisible and small and useless, and he hardly crawled out of that pit. He didn't know how to get the information he needed, and he didn't know how to give information, and that whole thing caused him to lose hope. It could be other things. There are other ways you have information. For instance, if you've lived somewhere for a while, you know where to get your hair cut. You know where to get the donut you like. You know how to quickly solve and meet your own needs. And that all is because you belong there to some kind of group that shares information. As well, because we're committed to life, we are confirmed in ourselves in some way. I remember I've been a pastor's wife for almost 8 years, and I remember running upstairs to a women's small group, a Bible study, and as I went up the stairs, I heard the women say, "Where is everybody today?" And then I came through the door, and someone said, "Here she is." You know, that was wonderful for me because I thought, this group it isn't a group till I get there. And so you have all kinds of places like that where you were confirmed for who you are. Here's the point. When you are present-oriented and embedded in a community, you have a largely automatic way of getting your needs met and getting what you need out of the environment, including contributing. Because one of the ways we feel healthy is when we can contribute. So you think of yourself right now, there's almost nothing you're contributing, right? Everything's being given to you. You don't know what you can give yet, so we're going to talk about that. But what we forget is that all this way of being connected to people and resources and ways of getting our needs met, even ways of contributing, support our sense of being. Now, I know as Christians, a lot of us think that we are who we are in any circumstance. So I am Marilyn Elliott, I have these gifts and calling, I could do it here, I could do it in Africa, I could do it in Memphis. It is not true. You are who you are in a circumstance. And that's hard to accept because we like to be all-powerful. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, there are 2 reasons that people change. Because change is hard. Now, if you've done any work with people, you know there are spouses that stay in a hellish marriage. Because even the potential of a better future is more frightening because it involves the unknown. We resist change at all cost. All of us do. Some personalities more than others, but change always brings loss, and somehow we all know this. So there are 2 reasons that people change, have enough impetus to change. Can you guess what they are? Anybody? Pain is one. What's the other one? Hope? Let's call it vision. There are 2 reasons that people will finally make a change. One is if the pain of the situation gets bad enough, they will finally say enough. But you might stay in a job where you are demeaned and diminished and crushed and under stress, so your heart's bad and your health is bad. You might stay there 5 years before the pain gets bad enough that you say enough. But the second reason is vision. If you can see a future that is bigger than what you have, if you can envision something, you can say, I'm going for that. Now, the truth is that most of us make changes because of a blend of those 2. So we begin to see a vision, but we're also really glad to let go of some of the pain of our life right here. And if you've been a pastorate, how many of you have been in a pastorate? I know there's lots of experience in this room. How many of you have walked into a church where the last pastor didn't do the work of leaving? Oh, yeah. You know what he said or she said? I am so glad I don't have to deal with Ethel anymore. And he left, or she left, and you got to deal with Ethel. And that's leaving the pain of the ministry. Okay, so for some reason, we have decided that we can let go, that we are going to make a change, and all of you have done that. And that already shows that you are high functioning. It shows that you are above a lot of the levels of our culture, how people live, because you have dared to make a change, and that's huge. And that's what I want to talk about today, so that I can equip you to make this change well and to handle other changes. Now, every change begins with an ending. How many of you are acutely aware of the ending you have just made? Okay. Tell the person beside you what the one thing about that ending, what the most poignant thing about that ending was, just in a word or two. Just tell the person beside you. Just speak it. Okay, that's enough. Obviously, you know some of what your ending is. I just want you to be alert to it. Now, you either made a good ending or you made a bad ending, and the way that, you made a healthy ending or an unhealthy ending, and how you made your ending will in large part determine how you enter. Interesting, hey? So some of us go through our ending lying to everyone. We say to our best friend, it's not going to change. We're going to stay close, nothing's going to change. I'm going to be your best friend, we're going to talk all the time on the phone. And you didn't say goodbye to anyone, you were busy lying to them and comforting you both by saying, this isn't a death between us. I won't ask how many did that. Some of you avoided finishing off problems. You left and you were glad to leave, as I mentioned before, and you didn't do the necessary work to at least face the problems that you're leaving, even though maybe you couldn't solve them. That also leaves a raw ending. And there's another thing, is the saying goodbye. Some of us don't know how to say goodbye, and so we don't let our children say goodbye, and we don't do it. For instance, when you move, you might want to ask your children, what are the people and places that really matter to you, that you want to say goodbye to? In one situation, one of our kids wanted to go to a park where we always went for holidays, because we didn't have any family around. We'd always go to this park, and we'd carve in this one tree. And he said, I want to go to the tree. I would never have thought that. And so that's part of when you're making a good ending. A good ending is honest. This hurts. I'm leaving you. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe we can be friends in some different way. A good ending says, this is a problem. I'm going to at least face this problem before I leave. I'm not going to run from it. Some people have a whole string of places they used to be, and they can't go back because there's all this rubble, right? So I can never go back to that town because there's 5 people that are mad at me, and I can never go there because I burned down a house before I left, and I could never go there because, you know. And so you end up with all this rubble behind you. If you address your problems, you can go back joyfully to every place. And then the last way is to really decide what matters to you, because what matters to other people might not be the same thing that matters to you. So if you leave well, you have a better chance of ending well. And some of you maybe need to go back and do some ending work. And you might get a chance to do that. That sometimes is a letter or a phone call or whatever. So the outward work of ending is like packing the car and farewells, but it's also changing the patterns of our life and releasing things, releasing our inner hold on things. It's very much like a death process. It's very much letting go. Os Guinness in The Call says in his book, The Call, which many of you might have seen or read, he says, negotiating the changes feels longer and worse than the change themselves because transition threatens our sense of personal meaning. So that's where you are now. You are in a time of transition. So when you leave, you have this sense of high expectation of the future and bright hopes, combined with this lifting of a burden. I remember the first time we left our first church after 7 years, my husband said, if I knew it was going to feel this good to let go of the church, I'd have done it a long time ago. Because that feeling of like, that heavy burden that you carry like a backpack, that like Paul says, I'm concerned every day for you. I carry you in my heart. That's what a pastor does, and you let go of that. But you let go of your present orientation, you become future-oriented. And all of you have let go of your present orientation and become future-oriented, and that's what we're going to demonstrate to you today, how that feels. So we are going to do it by using this little fun thing here. Now, I need 2 women and 2 men. Okay, 1, 2, 3, there's 2 men here, 1 woman, and there. Yep, come on up. Woohoo, give them a big hand. Now, we've done this many years, but we've never used women, and I thought today, I'm like, in my heart, I'm like, women, we've got to use some women. Okay, Eric, hello, where are you from?
Hartford, Alabama.
Awesome. And this is Kendall?
Amarillo, Texas.
Who's been married like 7 minutes.
To her.
We'll introduce you then.
I'm Katie, also from Amarillo.
Also married 7 minutes.
And I'm Lauren, and I'm from Georgia.
Georgia, okay. Okay, so here's the thing. When you move to somewhere new, you think you've arrived, but you haven't arrived. So we're going to use Eric here. Eric is your old life. Eric, would you come and stand here? This is a sturdy, firm life. Look at this. Look how healthy he looks. Okay? And we're going to use Kendall here. Kendall's your new life. He's kind of funky. Over to the side here, Kendall. He's new. He's a little different. He's got this tattoo thing going on here. What is that?
It's Christian rap.
Oh, Christian rap. I'll show you my Gaither tattoo later. Okay. So, okay. Okay, girls, come to your old life over on this side. Okay, now, you think that you moved from your old life to your new life by magic. But think of it like crossing a street. You actually have to get from your old life to your new life, and in between is a transition. And it is a different journey, and it is not your new life. That's the mistake we make. We think the transition is our new life, and we hate it. But the transition is something else. Think of it like crossing a road. So these two fine women are going to they're going to travel from their old life to their new life. Now, this is a pit of crocodiles here. You can't touch the floor, okay? And you have to get yourselves from your old life to your new life. Okay, who would let you, and you can help each other, but you can't touch the floor, okay? So let's start. Who wants to start?
Can we do it together? Or do we
Yeah, you can do it however you want. This has been done many creative ways. See, now, immediately, let me say something. This has never happened with men. Okay? Immediately, women know they need each other to get across the transition. We should have used, yeah. Okay. So how are you feeling?
Pretty good. I mean, yeah, pretty steady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep going. Okay, how are you feeling?
Still pretty good.
I had a bigger book. I should have put the bigger book under there.
The crocodiles can have the shoes.
Okay, they're getting advice from the community. That's good. Another good point. Okay, we almost had a fatality. The crocodiles, yeah, watch for them. How are you feeling right now?
I'm nervous.
How are you feeling?
I'm a little nervous too. I'm balancing this one for you. There you go. Yes.
Woohoo! Okay. Woohoo! Okay, that was so awesome. We have never had men do it that well, ever. Here you go. So what I'm going to do is talk you through these chairs. That was so awesome. I don't think only once or twice have we even had the group get across. There's been catastrophe, and they've had to stand on the floor. That was really awesome, and they got across because they did it together, which is a lesson you must never forget. Okay, just remember that one. Okay, that was so much fun, and I loved how their new life embraced them. Because I've also never seen the men do that. But that is an important thing to remember, that you're going from your old life and in here, because here, let me show you. Here you're present oriented, you're saying you get your needs met. You're not even thinking about getting your needs met. They're just getting met. You think, I'm going to this new wonderful place. It's going to be so awesome. You won't believe how awesome it is. And instead of going to the new place, you go here to the wobbly chair. And all of a sudden you say, I hate this new place. Or your wife says, I hate this new place. Or you come to Wilmore and you're first here and people are saying, hi y'all, and you think it's cute. And by 3 weeks into it, you're going like, shut up with the hi y'all. And so then you get into some of you haven't even reached the chaos in the middle, which is really where you could die. You fall off a cliff, you want to go home. And some people go home. And some people refuse to do the rest of the work of their transition. And they think, I hate this place. This isn't working for me. And then they say, God isn't here. I'm failing God. We aren't really called. Something is really wrong. And it's not true. All they're on the stupid ball in the middle. And if they could say, I hate this ball, that's a whole lot different than saying, I hate this life, right? And when you get to the other side, you find that you're embraced in this new life, and it's so wonderful. Our story over and over is people who come, we help them. All of us, all our departments are constantly helping people through the transitions. The transition can be practical, it can be painful, it can be emotional, it can be spiritual. We help you through the transition, and in the end, people say, I don't want to leave. This is such a home for me. I have dearest friends I've ever had. And we could give you witness after witness, but this is where you are, and I want to talk to you about this just briefly. Okay, so the first ball, of course, is I've already talked about that. You're present-oriented, and in fact, when you first come here, you are not first moved. First, you're a tourist, and everything is cute. How many of you thought Wilmore was cute? It's like Mayberry, right? Until like a Saturday night, 3 months from now, when you can't get any food in town. You know, like Mayberry can get really tiresome. Now, some of us have this illusion, like say you've been on 3 mission trips. You were on 2 3-week mission trips, 1 6-week mission trip, and you say, I have world experience. You do not. You have been a tourist in 3 places. Because even mission boards say that it takes 6 months to a year to get past the tourist stage. You have to go through a crisis, and the crisis is when the transition hits. So some of you are still tourists here, and you're loving it, and it's awesome, and people are great. But you know what? I promise you, you will go through this. So just listen up, and we'll talk about it together. The second ball, the second chair, is unsteady because you begin to sense that you are not in a flow of information, whereas maybe you used to be the flow of information. You do not know how to get your needs met, and worse, you do not know who to trust. So you feel like your compass is broken. And you may make friends with someone who really disappoints you, or someone might be nice to you and you don't trust them. There is a huge lack of trust that rises in people's hearts. And it can even be a time when you really judge other people quite harshly. So you could say, that person wasn't nice to me, or that person offended me. The person who walks by you and doesn't smile might be in such deep transition they can hardly get out of bed. And for them to be walking is a miracle. And they can't look you in the eye and you say, these people are not friendly. Because we all misjudge each other during this time of transition. You also become aware that although these are nice people, you're on the outside looking in. Because you are not yet present-oriented. You are only future-oriented, and that's one of the signs of insanity. You are like in a temporary insanity when you're in transition. Just own it. Enjoy it. It might be the best time of your life, you know. But like what'll happen is you'll get invited to someone's house here, and you have a great night. It's awesome. They do everything they can for you. You walk home, you are lonelier than when you went in, because you say, it's not like being with Kathy and John. But the problem is you can't have 5-year friends till you've had them for 5 years, right? So you're just getting to know people, and it doesn't sink into your heart the same way. So just be aware that, yes, you are on the outside looking in. It's just where you are. Just be there. Also, like you have no structure for life. If we didn't give you the NSO schedule this week, what would you be doing? Finding a job, sitting around, your phone wouldn't ring, or maybe your phone rings, but you know who's phoning you? Your other life is phoning you. And so it draws you back to your other life when what you need to be doing is the work of passing through here. If these women at any point stopped moving on, they would never have been in the embrace of their new life. Really big point. So the other thing is you're not essential to the community. Now, when you think of getting your needs met, it's not just that I can get my hair cut and get a donut. It's that I am important to the community. You know, the truth is today, you could go to your room, go into the 100-year sleep of the princess of the story, and no one would know you're asleep in there because you don't have an important part in the community yet. Now, I'm not saying that to make you feel bad. I'm just saying it because you're already feeling it. You just don't know what it is. And I want to tell you that our community is made up of a new, okay, do you know what a tide pool is? So at the ocean, the tide comes in, right? And when it goes out, it leaves a live pool, a shallow pool where there's all this fabulous life in it. And every time it washes in, it brings different life, and then it washes out. That's what seminary is for us who stay. People like Kevin and Rob and Peg Hutchins and I, we live in this kind of painful tide pool. So we're there in this beautiful tide pool with all this life, and you know what happens? Graduation, and whew, out goes all 150, 300 beautiful people. And we're like, it just feels like a death. And then the tide comes in and washes in, and you are the new life in the new tide pool. And our community is made of you, and your natures and your personalities and your gifts are going to determine what our community is for the next 3 years. You don't realize how important you are, but right now you don't know what that importance is yet. And we don't either, and we are waiting for it, but right now it hasn't evolved. And you don't know our language, you don't know jokes, you know, the theology, there are words we use here that aren't even in the dictionary. You have to get special dictionaries for it. And I want to give you a little clue about not being, because anxiety will kill your ability to learn. Part of this is to try to reduce your anxiety. But if you meet someone who uses a lot of theological words, especially just a student, I have a clue for you. They're not the smartest person here, they're the most insecure. Don't tell them I said that. But that's the truth. Do not be impressed by the big talkers. The people, okay, let me use Craig Keener as an example. Craig Keener, his wife works in our department, so we kind of own him. He's one of the most, yes. We take a lot of privileges in our department. Okay, so Craig Keener is masterful. He's writing these books. I mean, you will be so intimidated by his scholarship. He's a worldwide scholar, like one of the top in the world. He is the most humble guy you'll ever meet. The most humble guy. He will never intimidate you. He will love you. He will care for you. He's humble. He doesn't know what the fuss is about himself, and he will never intimidate you. Now, he's the rock star. Okay, so I'm just warning you, if you come across one of those people that like want to intimidate you, just blow it off. It's okay. And one other reason why right in here it's so bad is because nobody knows your story. And one of the ways you can overcome that horrible feeling of not being known is to tell people your story. At a time when, like Ashley said, you don't want to talk to anybody because you don't trust anybody. But they need to hear your story. And please don't tell your whole story to one person at one time. So that can be a little long, a little overwhelming, but let it come out in little bits and pieces. When we were in our first stint of school, Steve and I have been in seminary Bible school 5 times, sometimes both of us, sometimes one of us, and so on. In our first time, we had friends from Georgia. We were up in Regina, Canada, in Saskatchewan, and we had friends from Georgia who their 8-year-old daughter had leukemia. And they treated her at home, and we were their best friends, and the two of us lived in this sort of slum at the edge of the city. And so we were best friends. We were so poor, this was 1976, 77. We were so poor that we sometimes only had one roll of toilet paper between the two houses. And we would send it back and forth with the kids. We'd phone, Judy, I need the toilet paper. She'd go, okay, kid, take the toilet, and we'd share the toilet paper. She helped me. We plucked chickens to survive. She got Steve hunting. It was awesome. But we also helped them tend Michelle's death. We tended her right up till the time she died. And then because in Canada, there's free health care, but it includes ambulance, we had no money, we wrapped her body and we took her in a car to the morgue. It was the most deep journey together. And then that happened in April. In May, they graduated and went back to Georgia. And Judy would tell me on the phone with tears, nobody asks about Michelle. Like, everyone knew their stories. Like, oh, they lost a child, yes. But no one, and we go see them now. That was 1976. We saw them 2 years ago. You know what they do? They pull out the pictures of Michelle. The little videos of us all tobogganing. Because we're the only people that will talk to them about Michelle. Okay? So you have a Michelle. You have a journey. You need to tell your journey, and it will make you feel like part of the community, and we will understand who you are. We will come to love you, and we will tell you our story, and you will come to love us. So I want to make the point that no matter how optimistic you felt when you started on this journey, when you get into the middle, you do not feel good, and you do not feel good in your own personal way. It is a very real grief, and if you've done any grief work, you know that everyone grieves differently. So if you're a family of 5, every single person in your family is going to grieve differently. Maybe the husband is going to go throw himself into school to get by. Maybe the wife is going to sit in the house depressed. Maybe one of the kids who was toilet trained is going to stop going in the toilet, start wetting their bed. And everything in you wants to just spank them hard because you just can't deal with that. One time, in one of our school times like that, when it was the first one, when our kids were all little, we had 2 kids, we were in chaos, we had gotten robbed because we lived in this crummy area. So we had all this stress, we weren't happy, so we decided to solve the problem. We got a puppy. If you've ever had a puppy, you know that this did not solve the problem. It was avoidance that did not work. So I'm just saying there are ways that are not helpful. Like, for instance, going into gaming. We have talked to spouses where one or the other just avoids the pain of transition by being on the computer. I won't even talk about pornography. You know how soothing that is. How if that's your way, it's just stress just pulls you back into that. Or there's overeating, there's drinking, there's taking a lot of Tylenol. You know, there's a lot of ways to get through transition by doping yourself. That is not helpful. So I just want to say that. So then we get to the third ball, which is the tunnel of chaos. And this is just a deeper time of loneliness and confusion. And like I said, everybody in your family will go through it differently. And here's some of the things that happen. People talk to us about. Your sleeping pattern might change. You might feel like, I cannot sleep. I just can't sleep. Maybe the train is making you crazy. Okay, I've lived for 2 years in the Beeson townhouses, one in 95 and one in 2001. Eventually, I didn't hear the train. Unless I was on the phone, then I go, I guess it's the train, just a second. Like, you get used to things, but in the beginning, it's like, I'll never cope with this. Some people just frankly get depressed. It's temporary, but your system just sinks, and you're just low. And the part of you that was awesome, it seems dead. And with that, you can feel panic attacks and anxiety. Other people act opposite. I'm really glad Ashley said that, because this is something I've observed. A quiet person feels so desperate to get into the community, they start trying to be an extrovert, and they do it terrible. Like, they're odd, and they tell bad jokes, and they're obnoxious, and you already met that person, right? And they're really probably just trying. I mean, I've had people that at the beginning of their time here, I've thought, this is a nutcase, and they're going to be on my back this whole year. But about 4 months in, I find out they're the most beautiful person. They're not at all a nutcase. They were just dysfunctional for a while. And then you get the extrovert who can't even walk into a room. All they want to do is sit at home. It's weird how transition affects us. You know what the transition experts call it? Ego disillusion. Okay? So your ego is like the strength in you, the part of you that knows who you are. And it's like it melts like an ice cube on a summer walk. So you come here and you can preach, you've had an important part in your church, you're a thinker, you can handle people, you're a leader, and after like 2 months you think, I can't even put my hand up in class, I'm an idiot, I can't do anything, someone asks you to speak in chapel or read the prayer, you can't do it. Like, everything that feels strong in you just goes down to mush. It's a normal part of transition. Why am I telling you this? Why am I so obsessed with this? Because when I learned this in 1991, I learned it from David Pollock, who I got the chance to go to. He was doing transition seminars like this for American diplomats who were coming back into America, and he was trying to help them. And because we were working with missionaries then, our denomination wanted us to get in on this. I cried through the whole thing. It just touched on every bit of transition that I'd been through, and I didn't understand. And even knowing all this, 15 years ago, Steve and I moved here. We moved here so my husband could take First Alliance Church, just on the south side of Lexington. And so I had to move. I had to leave a teaching position that I had that I loved at Rocky Mountain College. It was undergrad. I taught theology to kids. I loved it. We had a home. We'd been in that church for 13 years. And that was a terrible transition. We came to a church that was unhealthy. Of course, they're all unhealthy. And we had to start over. And, the thing was that we were seasoned, mature ministry people. And we came here because my husband said we're going to come. Okay, he followed the call, and I followed him. So he had a terrible time fitting into this church. And it wasn't 1 year. It was like 2 years. It was 2.5 years. He had board fights. He almost got fired over and over. He would go to a board meeting saying, we might not have a job by the end of tonight. He had women in the church who opposed him. I don't know why. They didn't like his preaching. They wanted to get him. I mean, it was like war. And I was furious at him because he wasn't a big man in it. He just was a wimp. He was like grousing around, wishing we were back in Canada. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What am I doing here? Like, you can't even cope? I was so mad at him because I thought a grown-up man should be able to handle this better, right? He's seasoned. He knows. And we had days, honestly, where I would say to him in the morning, look, I don't like you, and you don't like me, but let's just get through today. And he'd say, good. Like, we were not, like, making it. And then I started saying to him, maybe our call is done. Maybe we've done everything that God wants us to do. Like, maybe God moves a call. Maybe we should stop this. And one day at the table, we were in the pit of despair. We'd been here about 2.5 years. We were not coping. Our marriage was just dead. And Steve looked across the table at me and he said, Marilyn, this is not spiritual. We're in transition and it's killing us. And at that moment, everything changed. Because we were thinking it was us, it was God, our marriage was bad, our ministry was bad. And suddenly, the enemy was outside of us. We were like, just like all the lights came on in our home. And we started dealing with it from a transition perspective. And within no time at all, we were on our feet. If you are feeling terrible, you are not in a sin problem. Unless, of course, you're in a sin problem. Then you can come and talk to someone. Right? If you are miserable here, if you hate it, if your spouse is saying, why did we come? Or if you're the one who's afraid to say to your spouse, because you dragged him or her here, you're afraid to say, I don't know why we came, I don't want to do this. You can say that because it's a transition statement. It's not a faith statement about your future. And that's what I want you to understand, and that will get you through this. That is a big, big idea. Now, I want to just tell you real quick how you can get through it. The first step is to acknowledge it and surrender to it. You know, there's a psalm, I think it's Psalm 20, that says, I am like a weaned child. And if you've been a mom, you know that the infant that is always hungry, like they're like a bird with their mouth open. They're always crying and screaming. Once you get a child weaned, like you're smiling because you know this, you have one of each. You have the unweaned child who's like always looking for the breast. And then you've got the weaned child who will just sit and love to be held and just sit. The first posture in transition is a posture of a weaned child. This here is the thrashing about. I hate this, I'm struggling, I don't know why we're here. If you can move toward a calm place where you are just miserable and okay with it, you have begun to move past it. I have a friend who says, get on the road and get in the right direction. It doesn't even matter if you're sitting at the side of the road, just face in the right direction. That is the first step of surviving transition and accomplishing what you need. Secondly, you need to show up. Because what you need to do is start looking for moments of grace. And they will come. The most important thing to do when you're in transition is to lean in. You have to show up. You have to go to chapel and sit and hate it. You have to walk into the cafeteria, pick up your tray, and not know where to sit. One day you'll walk into the cafeteria and someone will say, Caleb, come over here, sit with us. And that feels so awesome. But nothing's worse than holding your tray, walking around, and no one says, sit with me. So if you want to do something for your fellow students, even though you might feel like, who am I to say that? I'm new. They're new too, probably. If you see someone walking around with a tray, say, sit with me. You'll change their life in that moment. So you need to lean in to look for moments of grace. It will happen in the chapel. A song will be sung, and God will send an arrow of love into your heart, and he will start to heal that tension, and it'll be lovely. Create small moments of grace for each other. Gentleness is the appropriate posture of transition. It is not the time to discipline your children for being bad. Your children are being bad for the same reason you're being depressed. Your children are in transition. They pick up on your transition. They're worried, they're scared, and so they're screaming, or they're peeing their pants, or they won't eat dinner. That's a time to hold them and love them, to create little moments. Go get ice cream. Go, be even better yet, go get ice cream and invite the family next door, the guy next door, to join you for ice cream. The gentleness does not have to be expensive, but you need to be creating gentle moments. It is the way of grace, and transition needs grace. And I must say, you must be gentle with yourself. Honestly, this is not the time to pull out the whip and get disciplined. I mean, you're going to have discipline, let me tell you. You are going to become a marathon runner here. You might get physical discipline as well. You might get your finances in order. But you are going to have academic discipline. You're going to have spiritual discipline. You are going to become a high performer in academics for the kingdom of God, in ministry and leadership. But you know what? This is not the time for that. This is the time to sit on your porch with a cup of tea. This is the time to do what you need to do. A little thing, a gentle thing. Go get your basketball out and find a place to shoot some hoops. Sit in the sunshine. Open your curtains. Walk outside. See who comes. Honestly, friends, the benefit of this, let me just give you the benefits. In our life, this is a Canadian, I have no idea how I'm doing with time. Let me just look. Am I good? Oh, I'm so good. This is awesome. Okay, I can give you this Canadian illustration. I see life as being frozen most of the time. That is, we live like on an ice rink, and our furniture is all frozen in the ice. And there are many times you can't move. Like if you have kids in like certain grades, you can't move. If you've just started your church in a building program and you're $5 million in debt, this is not the summer to leave, right? If you're halfway through a project, if you have a job, your spouse has a job that they can't change, you can't make a change. And for most of our life, there are times which we can't make a change. We just know it. We are committed to something, we are in something, and we have to stay there. But there are times in life where the ice melts. And when the ice melts, that's a rare moment for you, a chance for you to move the furniture of your life into a whole new way. It is a chance to rebuild yourself, to reconstruct your life in a way that will take you into the next decade and change everything. And sometimes it's just noticeable change. It's just a little bit of change. And it will take your life into a big direction. Those moments of melting are rare, and you are in one of them now. Take advantage of it. You have a chance to do things differently. You have a chance to change some habits that have dominated your life. You have a chance to make friendships in new ways. You have a chance, if you've never exercised, you have a chance here. Free gym. Every day you can walk into the gym and work out. I've watched my friend Rob, him and Kevin are running marathons. And I've watched them get fit. It's been awesome. You've got chances to run, you've got chances to learn, you've got chances to change. This is your chance. That's what a melted time does, and you're in a melted time. Also, in a time when all our needs are not being met, we have this rare opportunity to learn what our truest desires and needs are. There's a real clarity that can come to us. Because most of us live most of our life in America with this saturated, we have our needs met, our wants met, a lot of things we're getting that we don't even know we want. But so maybe all your needs aren't being met. Then what is it you really need? Like if you could say to God, what I need today is, and name one thing, it might not be the thing you would have said a year ago. And that's a chance for you to clarify your spiritual soul and who you really are and what you really need. And that only happens during those rare melted times. Also, when we aren't when we aren't simply mechanical about our life, when our life isn't just happening automatically, we begin to have a chance to deepen the meaning of our life, because you're going to have to do things intentionally. You know, you're not just walking into the same thing every day. You're going to have to choose what you're going to walk into. And so you're going to have deeper meaning in the things that you do, and that's one of the benefits of this time. And then, of course, that abandonment to God at new levels. You're going to trust God for things you haven't trusted him for forever. You're going to have to trust him some days for your very breath. You're going to have to trust him to open a door for you. When you walk out of the house, you're going to have to say, God, help me meet someone today that doesn't hurt me. Help me meet someone kind. You know, I don't know what it is that you're going to need, but you can trust God for it at new levels. So what I want you to do now, I have a sheet of paper there. I've explained the transition process all on this one sheet, but the other sheet has questions. You see that the spelling has been corrected by my secretary. I guess I put what specific loses is this creating for you. But what I'd like you to do is think for a moment about the second question and the third. What are the losses you're feeling right now? And which ones are the most acute? This sheet, if you're married, if you could do this sheet each individually and then talk to each other, that would be a great exercise, because you don't go through transition the same. I want to tell you, what your spouse writes on here will surprise you. You'll go, are you kidding? That's the thing that's hard for you? If you are in the dorms or you have friends, women or men, I encourage you to find a friend and talk it through, because this is also a way of letting out some of your story. But right now, what I want you to do is, in groups of 2 or 3, I'd like you to talk about what are the losses that you're feeling now, or maybe leave this sheet and talk about which chair or ball you're on. Where do you think you are in the transition process? Just take a little bit. I just want you to process this a little bit. So we're just going to take 5 minutes. I'd love you to talk to someone. Just talk a little bit about what you've heard this morning and where you think you are.